All right, guys, this is Normal Central coming back at you with another YouTube video. And I got my special friend Nole Nation with me from last time. Nole Nation, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man, of course. I know that fall camp is coming up right around the corner. We have it tomorrow on Wednesday, July 29th, whenever you are watching this. But I do think that this is an important time to talk about projected depth charts. And I think the fan base is super excited to see what Florida State has because we have so many new pieces or so many returnees that are coming back with new roles. I just think it's a super exciting time. I'm basically just going to go over my projected depth chart today and get a couple of thought processes from you and see how you feel about it.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
All right, so the quarterback position, Ashton Daniels. We already saw he's been named the starter after spring practice. I like Ashton Daniels. Problem is, his touchdown to interception ratio was 28 to 24. Hasn't had too many bright moments. He had those two-game sample size against Vanderbilt and Alabama. They want to bank on him having that successful two-game stretch at the end and kind of his leadership abilities, his way he uses the RPO passing game. I think can be a really big key for Norvell, but this is the third transfer quarterback in a row, and I just wonder if Norvell is going to be able to do that. What do you think about Ashton Daniels, and do you think it was kind of a riskier proposition to go back in the transfer portal? Do you think maybe he should have used like a Kevin Sperry or even a Malachi Marshall, who everyone loves, or do you think he probably made the right decision?
Yeah, well, you see it around the league right now. There are really good quarterback battles going on.
Mhm.
I definitely think we should have probably let it actually have Marshall and
Mhm.
Sperry really get a fair shot at it. But obviously, I think they went off of experience and
Yeah.
time around the league, which maybe this pays out for him. I don't know, but I do like Ashton Daniels as a quarterback.
Yeah, I just wonder. I know a lot of people talk about the arm strength and everything like that. I think he'll be fine. I just think Mike Norvell has definitely got to. You don't want to have a 2024 situation where DJ Uiagalelei was basically not playing up to his strengths, got hurt after 4 games. You need him to stay healthy. You saw how Thomas Castellanos also got injured about halfway through the season. You got to make sure he's healthy, and you got to make sure you're doing the offense the right way around him.
Absolutely.
I would think the second thing I'm going to talk about today is the running back position. It's also important to run the ball. I think Usman Chroma is going to be your top running back. Not by a lot. I do think that Travion Wisner as well as Sam Singleton are both two running backs that are capable of leading this offense and kind of getting in the right space with everything. But I think Chroma is going to be that guy that takes the next step forward from year one to year two. I could see him probably having about 800 yards, 7 touchdowns. I don't think he's going to be a 1,000 yard rusher. I'm not going to really predict that. But I think 800 or 700 could be probably a safe bet for him. The obvious truth is he didn't have a rushing touchdown last year. He only had about 200 rushing yards and about 150 receiving yards. So this is a lot of production that I'm anticipating him to have. But how do you think this running back rotation is going to work out? Do you think a three-headed monster might be worth their while, unlike last year where they probably had 6 or 7 guys that look like a revolving door at running back? Or do you think they're probably going to go with the maybe the Wisner and the Chroma approach?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think it's going to be a three-headed monster. I mean, just because
Mhm.
I don't think they're going to just completely cut Sam Singleton out of the
Yeah.
rotation. Um, yeah, I think they'll use that. Um, they'll use Chroma as a power back. They're going to probably use Singleton as kind of your speedy guy.
Hmm.
Or even you saw Danzy kind of get a
Yeah.
few plays in there too. So it'd be interesting to see if he gets involved as maybe like an extended running back.
Yeah, and I know, like you said before, they don't want to leave Singleton out. I mean, they talked about all season last year about him being a freshman All-American. They're not going to leave a freshman All-American off on the field, basically.
Exactly.
He might get a little bit more burn at kickoff return, so you might see a little bit more,
Yeah.
opportunities for him. So you might see his running back role decrease. But don't forget about Jeremy Sands either. I think a guy from FAU they really like. Amari Thomas as well, that they also like at the running back position. It's just a lot of mouths to feed, and I hope that Florida State's able to kind of manage that mouths to feed and don't stop a hot hand when they're hot.
I mean, you could even see an Amari Thomas be on the kick
Yeah,
return. I mean, so
1,000%. No, I get it. We'll go over to the wide receiver position too. Deuce Robinson, I think, is going to be your glorified number one. He didn't come back for his senior season not to play. I think Makai Danzy, as you said before, with those Wildcat or end around runs that he had, he's going to be utilized everywhere. The problem I think I have with Danzy being like your number two is he's transitioning from that gadget type of running back to a wide receiver who's still learning the route tree, still learning how to catch the ball a little bit more. But I do think he's going to be a safer option at number two. Number three is where it gets a little dicey, and I think that's going to be Javon Boggs. Problem is, he's still not healthy. He's still limited. Guys like Jason Lopez as well as Devin Carter are in the mix as a true freshman. We all saw how that turned out a couple of years ago with Hakeem Williams and Dre Jacobs as well. Even a Tayshawn Gelsey could be involved there. Tariq Mallory. There's just a lot of options at the wide receiver position. I don't think everyone should panic about that, but you have to be kind of worried because Boggs was supposed to be this type of Hall of Fame wide receiver, as Deuce Robinson put it, and he just hasn't really progressed into anything special so far. He's been hurt. He had 56 yards against NC State. Then, he had the scary situation at the end of the game, and he just hasn't put it all together. And I wish that his high school tape translated over to his college tape, but obviously we know how that plays out. It doesn't pan out very well sometimes, but I'm hoping for the best for this wide receiver core. But those are my top three receivers. Do you have any concerns about that so far? Do you think the true freshman hype is worth it?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Javen Boggs is going to be the number one
Yeah.
kind of question mark that I have. Obviously, Deuce is not going to be on the sidelines.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, yeah, I think even if Boggs stays healthy, I think they'll rotate him, Carter, or Lopez in. And then I really think I think it'll be still like you said, Danzy at wideout two, and
Mm-hmm.
then I think it's going to be Deuce at obviously your wideout one. So yeah,
And I just don't know. I mean, everyone talks about the wide receiver position, but with Mike Norvell calling plays, now this tight end position comes even more important. And you had a Randy Pittman that was your do it all basically last year, and now he transferred over to SMU. So now you got Desirius Riles, who they really like. He's more of a receiving option. He's more of a Jaheim Bell, maybe not as explosive and as electric, but I do think that he can be able to hold it down. Landon Thomas, they said, had his best offseason, kind of scares me a little bit on that end. But they did keep him back from entering the transfer portal and keeping him at Florida State. And then you got a guy like Chase Lofton, who Mike Norvell absolutely loves. They said that was their top get in that recruiting cycle, and I believe it. I mean, that guy is basically a 6'6" wide receiver in a tight end's body. And I think if he actually develops as a blocker, I think he could be a complete package. But I think Riles and Thomas are probably going to be your top two mindsets there, your top two options. And then you got Lofton kind of sitting around waiting in the shadows, and I think that could possibly be it. But I get it. Everyone talks about we have too many tight ends on the roster, but these three guys are actually really good. They're probably not as talented as a Randy Pittman per se, because Randy Pittman's been doing it for a long time. He does things, as you saw in the Alabama game, that just don't get talked about enough in terms of the blocking game. But I do think that these three tight ends are going to be your best bet, with Riles probably leading the way at number one.
absolutely. It'll be interesting to see what Landon Thomas does. I mean, four-star prospect,
Hmm.
in the 24 class,
Yep.
and he's kind of a weird year.
Yeah.
I think he only got a few plays. He's only been in a few plays, maybe
Yeah.
one touchdown, two.
Yeah. I can
Uh,
only recall that like Pitt touchdown that he
yeah,
had when he was, skying up before halftime, and that was about it.
yeah. That's so. I'm kind of wanting to see a breakout year from him, but
Yeah.
obviously with the Desirius Riles,
Mm.
I think he's probably going to be your best option.
Yeah. And I think too, none of this really matters in terms of playmakers until you think about the offensive line. Obviously, we had to replace all five starters last year. And Herb Hand, I know, has been around a lot of Power Four schools. He's been known for developing guys, and he's been around for quite some time. It's hard to argue with that. I get some fans are kind of worn out about his recruiting efforts. We haven't been able to get a high school recruit yet. And a lot of those high schoolers that we've recruited out of high school haven't really played so far at Florida State on the offensive line. Hopefully this year it'll change a little bit. But I'll go over the entire offensive line, I think, and maybe some guys that in the rotation, in the reserve spots that I think could probably be some contributors as well. Xavier Chaplin, who I think is going to be your left tackle. Left guard, I have Andre Otto. I have Braden Joyner as my center. I have Nate Paps as my right guard, and then I have Chimita Nawu is going to be your right tackle as well. And I think probably your three that you're going to have there is probably going to be Jonathan Daniels, probably Sandman Thompson, and maybe Paul Bowling. I think is probably going to be your three. Maybe if they like Jaden Todd enough to make him that ninth guy, I think could probably be the spare right there. I think really your biggest gripe in this whole thing, I think they want to give Sandman another year to kind of grow and develop. I know that Joyner is technically a redshirt junior, so he has another year. I think it's smart to have a lot of guys with eligibility because when you're looking at this offensive line, really, I think the only guy that they have, or the only two guys I think they have, is Paps and Chaplin that are seniors. So the rest of those guys have another year of eligibility in 27. I definitely think that you can move around Paps as much as you have. I know everyone wants to talk about this, and I know it's bad feelings, but Darius Washington was a guy that was like a Swiss Army knife for them. You know, center, guard, tackle. I think Paps is kind of your guard and tackle combo that you can kind of put anywhere you want to if someone is to be getting injured, because offensive line always get injured. I mean, they play every single play. They're physical. You know, they have to be in the trenches 24/7. I think you're probably going to have to move around some guys, and hopefully none of those get seriously hurt. But I do think those are my top five. Do you think with this top five that I have out there, Mike Norvell talked about in a recent press conference, I believe it was yesterday's, talking about the offensive line for Florida State was probably a position he feels very good about because they practice all spring. You saw last year where basically the only guy that even participated really in the spring was Luke Pettibone, and they were really nervous about guys not really being available for practices. Do you think this offensive line can really be a set the standard, I guess, for Florida State? Not saying they're going to be world beaters, not saying they're going to be like the top in the class or the top in the country or anything, but do you think they can be a serviceable unit that could really provide Florida State a lot of options at what they got?
Absolutely, absolutely, they can. Offensive line is important, especially if you're going to use the run game and or the screen plays. Like I know you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned with Ashton Daniels and Mike
Mm-hmm.
Norvell calling the plays.
Yeah.
Those are plays that Norvell is going to like to do. So you're going to have a good offensive line to block. So, and I think with all those guys you just mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
seems like they can be a really, really kind of dark horse.
Yeah, I'm super excited to see. I don't really know what's going to happen yet with like a guy like Paul Bowling, for example.
Mhm.
They brought him in from Troy, started in 12 games as a true freshman. I think that he can be a guy that Florida State can rely on. I just wonder where they're going to put him. I mean, would it be better for him just to come off the bench because he can play center, he can play a little guard too. I just wonder. I think Florida State may kind of have him in the burners. I thought Paps might be a guy that they might put as a reserve, but I just think he's one of the more talented guys that they have on the roster, and I honestly don't think they need to put him out of there, like out of the rotation.
Two of the guys that I really want to see, hopefully, either start or maybe work their way up through the
Mm,
season if injuries happen, are Jaden Todd and Jonathan Daniels because those are
yeah.
high school recruits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's important, especially because I feel like we've been going to the portal so much on the offensive line.
Yeah, and I mean Jaden Todd has been a guy they brought up quite a bit, and even a guy like Andre Ade, who I had projected as a left
Yep.
guard starter. Man, if he's able to contribute and start multiple games, he has another year of eligibility next year. You can be able to buy some time to get some other younger recruits that you bought in because, yeah, Herb Hand's not really had the greatest luck in terms of recruiting guys, but he's had these bigger guys that may take about 3 or 4 years to develop. But man, if they're able to get a good foundation underneath them and get in a strength and conditioning program, lose a little bit of weight, get the weight they need to get on there and get the strength they need, man, the sky's the limit for some of these guys. And I'm super
Absolutely.
excited to see. And I know that we talked about this before, and I know this is a common theme at Florida State, the trenches, because you're looking at guys bringing in transfers all the time. You had your Jared Verses and your Jermaine Johnsons and other guys like that. And last year you saw, you basically banked on your whole season coming around James Williams and Jason Jenkins and
The
basically
Desir twins.
yeah, like I mean, and that's the thing too, is even coming into last offseason, you didn't even really expect anything. Tony White made a comment about saying the Desir twins were going to be something special. Everyone looked at him funny, and then look what they did.
Mhm.
really this whole offseason though is basically talking about retaining the Desir twins. Retaining a guy like Kevin Wynn, I think was super important. And an underrated guy that I know a lot of people aren't really talking about as much, and now they really are, specifically Mike Norvell, is a Daniel Lyons, who has been here for 4 years, coming into his fifth year of the program. And he talked about it in a press conference. I am a Nole. I am a Nole. I have been through everything as many kids as is transferred out of here or transferred in general throughout college football, it's so refreshing to see a guy that started and finished his career at Florida State. Just looking at a guy like Azaria Thomas, for example. I mean, that's a guy that's battled through, did everything he needed to do. Even a guy on the team that I'll kind of discuss a little bit later, Quindarius Jones, another guy who's been around for a long time. Jabril Rawls. I mean, we'll mention a lot of these guys, but I just think there's a lot of guys here that I'm super excited to see. But I think probably if you're running, I know Tony White does the 3-3-5. I understand that. But I think if you're actually wanting to get a four-man set out there and you're wanting to get the best of the best of the best in the defensive line, I think you're probably going to have your Mandrell Desir as one of the edges, potentially. He can play either edge or defensive tackle. Kevin Wynn, I think, has got to be in there. You paid too much money. You probably got him in the NIL space there. Daniel Lyons, you've been talking him up all offseason. You have to be able to play him. And then I think your last one is going to be Rylan Kennedy because that's one of your best defensive linemen that you got out of the portal. Really, your only one in terms of defensive ends. And I think that you have to start those guys. Now, obviously, they rotate a lot of guys in and out. Daryl Desir will be another one. McCray will also be another one, too, that I really like. I think there's a lot of guys, and I think Diamante Diggs can be a guy that Mike Norvell talks about is being that guy. He had a sack against Alabama and then got a neck injury a couple of games later. Jalen Anderson, another guy who can be able to kind of emerge and pop up. But with this and knowing that they're so young and unproven and just, I mean, the defensive line is what it is. It's just kind of a lottery ticket at this point. You know, you're trying to figure out what they are. What are your thoughts on the defensive line?
Well, I was a little worried about it,
Mhm.
right after the portal.
Yeah.
But now I'm kind of seeing that we may have got a few really, really good
Yeah.
guys out of the portal. Um, like a Rylan Kennedy from Texas A&M,
Yeah.
who I think is going to be really good. I know you mentioned Diamante Diggs, Deontay
Hmm.
McCray. Um, Kevin Wynn could be a really, really good factor. I know we mentioned injuries earlier with Javen
Hmm.
Boggs. That's another guy that's been hit with it.
Yeah.
But if Kevin Wynn can, really, really get healthy, he can have a monster year.
Oh yeah, I'm super excited to see what happens with that too. And like even a guy like Jalen Anderson, who was one of the top JUCO defensive ends, nobody really talks about him because he's not the most sexiest name out there. It's not someone you're really looking forward to in terms of that. But man, if he gets it going, and then they get kind of a rotation coming in there and keeping guys fresh and keeping them throughout the season, sky's the limit. I don't really know if it's going to be something there, but we'll see. But we're going to kind of speed track through this a little bit more. Linebacker position. I have Chris Jones, I have Blake Nicholson, and I have Omar Graham Jr. And the reason I think I have this is because Bear's been hurt. The guy from North Carolina slash Nebraska, been around at linebacker for quite some time now at this point. But Chris Jones, having 135 tackles last year, signed with Ole Miss, was able to get out of his NIL with Ole Miss, and now you're seeing Florida State kind of getting the benefits of probably the best linebacker they probably had in quite some time. You got a guy like Omar Graham and Blake Nicholson that have been here for quite some time, and I think those are your three guys that you're going to have step up and everything. But I wouldn't be surprised to see like an Isaiah Williams as a true freshman, as soon as he kind of gets involved and gets up to speed a little bit more, can really make a factor in what Florida State can do in the linebacker core.
Absolutely. That's one of the guys I'm really excited to watch this year is Isaiah Williams. And he's back to practicing, I
Mhm.
believe.
Yeah, he's fully clear now. So
So he's fully clear,
yeah,
I think he's got fall camp to really
yeah,
prove himself. I mean, obviously, I don't think he's going to be a guy that starts over Chris Jones or anything,
yeah.
but definitely could be a rotational piece with either a Nicholson or Graham.
Yeah, and it's time for those guys to step up. It's time for those veterans to kind of get together with that. I think Ernie Sims is really trying to get a lot of those guys stepping in and getting there. I just want to give a shout out to Ethan Pritchard as well. I know he's recovering very smoothly. I know he's been walking a little bit more. Prayers go out to him and his family. I know that's a great thing to see, and I know it was a tough situation to go through. So definitely hoping and praying for just his development, even if he doesn't ever play at Florida State, and even if he never plays football again. I just want him to be successful in life and being able to kind of get back into the swing of things, and cannot wait to see his next journey as he goes through.
Absolutely.
We'll go ahead and go to the corners real quick. I think this is more cut and dry. I think Jabril Rawls is going to be your number one guy. I think he's a guy they've retained in the portal, was threatening about going out to the transfer portal, but now he's back. Blue Adams is going to be coaching that unit with Nehemiah Chandler, the South Alabama transfer. I think those are your two top corners per se. But Quindarius Jones is kind of just hanging in the distance. Like, what about me? You know, he suffered that season injury about halfway through the year. And I think this could really be a spot for him to kind of step up and really develop. Charles Lester, I hope, is going to be in that mix, you know, and I hope Chuck Cannon is also going to be another guy that maybe steps up. Jamari Howard, another guy they really want to step up there. There's so many DBs and so many basically cornerbacks that they really love, but you got to see some of those guys step up. And I think those are going to be kind of your three guys, main guys, and Charles Lester's kind of your wild card, I think. What do you think about that?
I like that. I really like Quinn Jones.
Hmm.
I think he's made some plays during his
Yeah.
time. He's been here. Is he a junior, Richard Junior?
He's actually a senior,
Oh,
believe it or not.
senior this year.
Yeah, time flies, doesn't it?
Well, damn.
Yeah,
um, but yeah, that's a guy that I would like to see. Obviously,
yeah,
I know bringing in Chandler and then also having a guy like Rawls. I
yeah,
mean, those are two guys you're not gonna, have on the bench or on the
yeah.
sidelines very much. Um, yeah,
And then we'll go over to the last spot, the safety position. I know this is a big thing for Tony White to have kind of those hybrid safeties. You want to have more out there and being able to protect everything. Makai Jones, I think, is probably going to play your field safety spot. Boundary safety, I'm kind of torn. I want it to be KJ Kirkland, but I think it's going to be CJ Richard, another transfer in that we brought in this past offseason. And then the biggest thing and the biggest position probably of this whole defense is the rover position. And I think that's going to be Ashton Barker. Listen, I understand the whole comments that he had on, you know, his stream when he was gaming and everything. Didn't really go the probably the best way that everyone thought. The thoughts were out there, and obviously with Florida State struggling as much as they have, he's really stepped up to the plate. And you saw in their recent social media posts that they had of Florida State football, he was able to break the rock after his summer workouts. He was able to lead the guys, and that's what you want to see. You don't want to see this negativity because Florida State, let's face it, has enough negativity to like revolve around this whole program. You want to see guys being able to step up. I think Barker is going to be your guy there. And I know it hurts to have Earl Little Jr. transfer out and go to Ohio State. That's a great program over there, and I understand why he's able to do so. You want another opportunity. I know he had a great game against Alabama and was probably the biggest reason why we even beat Alabama. So that's why I'm saying that Rover position is so important. It's kind of that hybrid mix of a safety and a linebacker in this defense, can play anywhere. I think Barker's going to be your guy there. Had 42 tackles last year. But again, this remains the theme for the entire defensive backfield: health. You got to stay healthy. And I think that is a huge key for Florida State. Trey Bell could also be another factor there that I'm kind of monitoring a little bit. They really like him. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him kind of navigate in that role a little bit more too. But just overall, though, I think Barker is going to kind of lead your back of your defense.
absolutely. I agree with that.
I just wonder, before we get off and everything, I know Mike Norvell talks about special teams being so important with that. And I know we talked about the true freshman wide receivers and how they were going to factor into anything. And I even heard about Jason Lopez possibly being a punt returner for Florida State. I understand that kickoff returner maybe Sam Singleton. That's great because he has excelled in that role. But do you believe in having a true freshman Jason Lopez out there? Because we saw Squirrel White against NC State. I was in person for that game in Raleigh, and it was oof. Let me escape that mind and that thought for a second because I don't think I want to ever go back to Raleigh again. But just looking at that though, do you think that is a smart investment to have someone so important and key to that role and aspect of this team being in charge of that? Or would you rather have an experienced veteran come out there and be able to have that duty?
Well, I mean, Deuce Spann was
Uh,
another one that was doing kick returns. I don't know
yeah.
if he was a freshman though.
Yeah.
Um,
He done a little bit more too, and I know he done more at kickoff return with the whole Duke game, that year. So yeah,
but
it was something though. But do you think that should be a true freshman responsibility and honor to have that, or do you think it's just best man wins?
best man wins. But I
Yeah.
do think like if you really want to see Jason Lopez and get him on the field, you can have him do like a punt return,
Yeah.
something like that. Um, yeah,
Yeah, and I wouldn't mind to see Makai Danzy back there either, but obviously with him being your number two guy, you're already kind of a little bit more thin at wide receiver in terms of health. You don't need any more injuries. But at the end of the day is Florida State's got to win this year. They have to have dynamic points on the scoreboard, and you got to be able to get your offense in a great position to score. So that's
you
just how
can't
it
have
is.
another 5-7 year or 2 and
No, absolutely not. Well, man, it was great to talk about the projected depth chart, get some of your thoughts, get some of your thoughts on the season and everything. I'll be sure to leave your Instagram link at the bottom of this description because I know it's going to be exciting for fans to check out. Because guess what, man? We are a month away from playing New Mexico State in Doak Campbell Stadium. If you need tickets, I have a SeatGeek code, Norvell Central. You can get $20 off your first purchase. And I'm super excited to see as many fans in the stands. And I'm going to be over in Lot 19. So if anyone wants to come out, hang out in Doak Campbell Stadium or before the game, be sure to let us know. We're going to be super excited for this game. And any other last thoughts before we get off?
yes, sir. Go Noles.
Go Noles, and hope everyone has a great night. And as always, we will be back with another video pretty soon.